Warzone versus Monk Mode. Kobe Bryant versus Black Mamba. Bruce Wayne versus Batman. Clark Kent versus Superman. The Dark Knight versus True Cause. All right, welcome to the Black Man Black Health Podcast. Today we're going to talk about Warzone versus Monk Mode. When do you do it? Do you do it? And if it's wrong or right. So I was inspired to do this episode by listening to a podcast episode from Danco. I love Danco, by the way. Love how the dude thinks, how he writes, and just how he sees things. It's really, really amazing. And he made this statement in this last podcast, and it just grabbed me, and I was like, let me just keep thinking about it. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. So usually when that happens, I'll usually just talk it out through an episode. Now, he talks about sometimes you have to choose between going into monk mode and going into Warzone. So let me just give you like a brief definition so you can understand what I mean in context. Monk mode would be a deep state of focus and like isolation where you cut off all distractions to achieve long-term mastery or personal growth. Now, people usually think they're in monk mode, but they're really not. That they're saying like, I'm cutting off all distractions and stuff like that. And sometimes the biggest distraction isn't even social media. Sometimes the biggest distraction is you putting your focus on a gazillion things. It could be social media, but a lot of times it's something that's in you that needs to be tamed or cut off. The mindset of somebody that's going to be in monk mode is going to be intentional solitude, discipline, self-mastery, which I like to consider to be reading, removing noise to work on something meaningful. Cal Newport, the author of the book Deep Work, if you've never read it, definitely go read it. It's like monk mode where he focuses real deep in his work. He's really, really successful, and he doesn't even have any social media. So with someone going monk mode, they're working on the inside, they're more slower and deliberate with the progress, minimal distractions. They're not doing a ton of stuff. Usually they're not even coming outside. It would almost look like they're hibernating, right? Which can be good. So an example of that, and then I'll explain what Warzone means is like if a writer goes off grid to go write a book for a couple months without distractions. I think if we all had the ability to be like, let's go live off grid for 8 weeks and just accomplish what we really need to, I think we would see some amazing results. Warzone is a little different. The Warzone is a state where like you're aggressively pushing forward, handling multiple battles at once, and thriving under pressure. Like think about like 300 or like Troy or Alexander when they're out in battle. They're doing multiple things at once. They're defending, they're on offense, they're doing so much. That's Warzone. Like the mindset of somebody who's going to be, and Warzone is going to be like high energy, hustle, combat mode. When Kobe Bryant made the statement that he went from just being Kobe Bryant to introducing the Black Mamba, he flipped a switch that, man, he went ballistic on the court. He was so focused. He was so great. And he said he did it so that he could fully focus on basketball when he was Black Mamba and not really combine the two. So you probably got some thoughts in your head already about if that's crazy or not, but let's just finish like what Warzone means and then we'll talk about that. The key traits of somebody going in Warzone is rapid execution, high output. They're handling multiple projects, so they're not just doing one. They're usually operating under stress and external pressure. That's when they're really, really competitive. Like an example of that would be like an entrepreneur launching a product while managing clients, hiring a team, and dealing with unexpected setbacks. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably thinking, that's my normal life. That's my normal life. Now, if you're a therapist, you're probably looking at these like Warzone sounds like there's an alter ego. And I'm not not knocking that or debating that. I'm sharing. Do I think it's right or wrong? I think it depends on the person. I think it depends on the area of your life. If you go war zone in every area of your life, you're going to hurt somebody probably. If you go monk mode in every area of your life, you might hurt somebody the same way. You might not pay attention to people. So I think a balance of both is necessary. Now, the part that I think about Warzone is, when should I be using it and when should I use it? I say use Warzone when you need to execute, when you have to hustle, when you have to push through immediate challenges. And when I say hustle, I mean like, you don't want to live your life in hustle, but if you know like, hey, I got a deadline in 3 days and I gotta get this done, then you gotta put some hustle in. I think that's Warzone time. That's not monk mode time to be like, I'm not to just sit out and not pay attention to anything. When you use monk mode, when you need deep transformation, clarity, and skill development, right? When transitions are happening in life, we're in some big transitions. So there are times where I'm just in a phase of like learning a lot, and then in another area of my life, it is Warzone. Now, I adopted my alter ego, if you want to call that. I'll probably get in trouble for this, but I adopted mine to be called the Dark Knight. Hey, these two tasks I gotta really put work in, so I'm Dark Knight when I'm in that, and that comes from Batman. And then in monk mode, when it comes to taking care of my family and their emotions and my emotions, I'm in monk mode. A balance of both is key. Like, you go into Warzone when it's time to dominate, then you switch to monk mode when it's time to level up. The question would be, Drew, how do I know which is which? And this is where my 6M blueprint comes from, where I teach people about manifesting. How do you actually start looking and seeing, what do I want, right? Nothing mystical. Mastery, what do I need to start thinking about? What do I need to start putting in my head through reading? Messages, what do I need to start saying to myself? Meditation, how do I want to really start spending time with God and listening? Movement, I need to move my body and breath work or just exercise. And then memoir writing, which is just journaling. With doing things like that, I start to realize, what are the areas that needs monk mode? What's the areas that needs like war zone or war mode? And you start to realize, by going through this 6M blueprint, these area actually needs monk mode. Therapy will help you realize that too. Like, hey, you've been procrastinating on this goal for like last 3 years, and maybe need to go war mode for that. Or you haven't slowed down in this area for the last 3 years. You might need to go monk mode. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not saying either is right or wrong. I'm just giving you a way to look at it. And I love it because we usually go all or nothing, and that usually fails. When we go all or nothing on a goal, and we don't have any like lever to stop us, we usually self-destruct. Now, Alex Ramosi said this, and it's true. He said a friend of his trained like top athletes and Olympic athletes, and someone said, what do they have that we don't? And he said they don't have an off switch. They're always working to get better. They're always working to completely crush it. And with that, you may be like, yo, that's a little bit like obsessive. It could be, but it all depends on who you are, what you want, and where you're at in life. I would say if I wasn't married and I didn't have kids, thinking how I think now, I'd probably be like that. But I'm not, because I have a family and I have things, people attached to me. Now, with all of that, I want to invite you guys into what we call the 6M Blueprint. It's 40 days where you learn about the 6M Blueprint, but you learn it in a way where you are being, I don't want to say challenged, where you're being supported while you're transforming. You're transforming into somebody else during these 40 days, And we're using the 6M blueprint to help you anchor what's happening, what needs to be happening, and what have I been probably missing throughout my life of trying to make big changes. When you make big changes, you don't realize everything shifts. You just don't realize it. You just focus on, I'm making this big change, and you sometimes do it by motivation, and then within 2 weeks it's done. No, we want you to be able to make change, see sustaining change, and use the blueprint all over again. If that sounds like something that can help you, and you know, like, hey, I need to really make some big changes, and I really need to be really intentional with it, the link is going to be in our bio. If you're listening to this on anywhere you're listening to this, hit me up, drewcross.com, and we'll get you acclimated with that. Other than that, guys, be great. I'm out of here.